Dean wanted to say something more when the office door was suddenly slammed open with a bang. A female student, face bloodless, voice carrying a sob and trembling disbelief. Ms. Sterling, something terrible happened. Nina. She jumped from the building. The world went silent. For a heartbeat, for two, no one moved, no one spoke. The air in the dean's office turned thick and icy, so heavy it pressed against my chest, stealing my breath. I stood frozen in the doorway, my hands still gripping the doorframe so tightly my knuckles turned white, my eyes fixed on Ms. Sterling, Nina's mother, whose face had drained of all color, leaving only a sickly, ashen hue. The smile that had clung to her lips just seconds ago was gone, replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated shock, like someone had dumped a bucket of ice water over her head and shattered every pretense she'd ever worn. "What did you say?" Her voice was barely a whisper, cracked and trembling, nothing like the sharp, authoritative tone she used to scold Nina, to command her class, to apologize to the dean with false humility. She took a stumbling step forward, her hands outstretched as if she could physically grab the words and make them untrue. "Say it again." Slowly. "Nina, what?" The female student, Lila, from our class, always quiet, always keeping to herself, burst into tears, her body shaking violently as she repeated the words, each one a knife to the silence. Nina jumped from the 6th floor hallway window. She's on the lawn. The nurse is there, but she's not moving. No, Ms. Sterling's voice rose, shrill and desperate, cutting through Lila's sobs. "That's impossible. Nina wouldn't do that. She's obedient. She never talks back, never fights back. She wouldn't dare do something like this." She shook her head frantically, as if denying it hard enough would make it disappear. Her composure, her armor, the Ms. Sterling everyone knew, all of it crumbled in that moment, leaving behind a woman unraveling at the seams. A mother who couldn't bear the truth of what she'd done. Dean Morrison was the first to snap out of the stupor. He grabbed his jacket off the back of his chair, his face grave, and strode toward the door, pausing only to glare at Ms. Sterling, a look of disappointment and anger in his eyes. "Come on, now, Ms. Sterling stumbled after him, her legs unsteady, her shoes clicking loudly against the linoleum floor in a panicked rhythm. I followed behind them, my feet moving as if on autopilot, my mind blank except for the image of Nina, curled up in the hallway, clothes torn, face covered in blood, her small notebook hidden in her pocket. The notebook with 100 points deducted. The notebook that was her only way of fighting back, her only way of counting the ways her mother had broken her. The hallway was chaos. Students crowded the windows, craning their necks to see the lawn below, whispering frantically to each other, their voices a murmur that grew louder and louder until it was a roar. Some were crying, some were frozen in shock, some were pointing, their faces a mix of curiosity and horror. I saw Wendy standing near the classroom door, her face pale, her lips trembling, but her eyes, those eyes that had been full of satisfaction just minutes ago, were wide with fear, like she hadn't expected things to go this far. Like she'd just realized that her little lie had cost someone their life. When we reached the stairs, Ms. Sterling broke into a run, her heels slipping on the steps, her hair flying wild around her face. She didn't care about her appearance anymore, didn't care about authority or discipline or setting an example. All she cared about was reaching Nina, proving that this was some terrible mistake. The lawn was a scene of controlled chaos. The school nurse was kneeling on the grass, her hands pressed against Nina's chest, performing CPR, her face set in a determined frown. A crowd of students had gathered at a safe distance, kept back by a few teachers, but their whispers still drifted over. "Is she dead? Why would she jump? Ms. Sterling beat her again this morning, right? Ms. Sterling pushed through the crowd, screaming Nina's name, her voice raw with grief. "Nina, Nina, baby, wake up. It's Mom. Please wake up." She dropped to her knees beside the nurse, her hands reaching out to touch Nina's face, but the nurse pulled her back sharply. "Don't touch her," the nurse snapped. "I'm trying to save her life. Get back." Ms. Sterling froze, her hands hovering in midair, tears streaming down her face. For the first time, I saw her truly break. She collapsed onto the grass, her body racked with sobs, her shoulders shaking as she whispered over and over, "I'm sorry. Nina, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just trying to do the right thing. I was just trying to be a good mom, a good teacher. Please forgive me." I stood at the edge of the crowd, watching her, and felt nothing. No sympathy, no sadness, no anger, just a cold, empty numbness. She was sorry now, sorry that her little tool for establishing authority was broken, sorry that she'd gone too far. But where was her sorry when she was slapping Nina's face swollen in front of the entire class? Where was her sorry when she was stabbing Nina's mouth with a needle until blood poured out? Where was her sorry when she was stripping Nina naked in the hallway, ignoring her screams, ignoring her pleas? Sorry didn't bring Nina back. Sorry didn't erase the 100 points, the 100 times she'd been humiliated, beaten, broken. Sorry was just another lie, another pretense, another way for Ms. Sterling to make herself feel better. Wendy appeared beside me, her face still pale, her eyes red from crying. I didn't mean it, she whispered, her voice so soft I could barely hear her. I just wanted to get her in trouble. I didn't think she'd jump. Nina was supposed to be strong. She was supposed to take it, like she always did. I turned to look at her, my gaze cold. You wanted her to be your punching bag. You wanted MS Sterling to love you more, so you lied about her. You watched her get beaten, watched her get humiliated, and you smiled. Now you're sorry? Wendy flinched, her lower lip trembling. I was jealous, she admitted, tears spilling down her cheeks. My mom left me. Ms. Sterling was the closest thing I had to a mom. I thought if Nina was gone, she'd choose me. I thought she'd love me. But now I realize she doesn't love anyone. She only loves her authority. She only loves being in control. She was right. Ms. Sterling didn't love Nina, and she didn't love Wendy. She loved the power that came with being a homeroom teacher, the fear in her students' eyes, the admiration from other teachers. Nina was just a tool, a means to an end. Wendy was just a distraction, a way to feel like she was doing something right, a way to pretend she was a caring mentor. The sound of sirens cut through the air, growing louder and louder until an ambulance pulled up to the lawn. Paramedics jumped out, rushing to Nina's side, replacing the nurse, continuing CPR as they loaded her onto a stretcher and into the ambulance. Ms. Sterling tried to follow, but one of the teachers held her back. Let me go. That's my daughter, she screamed, struggling against the teacher's grip. I need to be with her. Please let me go. Ms. Sterling, calm down, the teacher said, his voice gentle but firm. The paramedics will take care of her. You need to stay here, talk to the police, answer their questions. Police. The word hung in the air, heavy and unavoidable. Everyone knew why they were here. Everyone knew what Ms. Sterling had done. The slaps, the needles, the public humiliation. The students had seen it all, heard it all. They would talk. They would tell the police everything. And Ms. Sterling would have to pay for what she'd done. Ms. Sterling stopped struggling, her body going limp. She looked at the ambulance as it pulled away, its sirens fading into the distance, and whispered, "She's all I have. Please don't take her from me. I'll do anything. I'll quit my job. I'll never hit her again. I'll be a better mom. Just bring her back." But it was too late. The damage was done. Nina was gone, and nothing Ms. Sterling did or said could bring her back. The school day was cancelled. Students were sent home, teachers were called into emergency meetings, and the police stayed late, interviewing anyone who had seen or heard what had happened. Lila, who had found Nina, the nurse, who had tried to save her, the students who had watched the humiliation in the hallway, Wendy, who had lied about the dating, and me, who had watched it all unfold, who had kept silent as Nina was broken piece by piece. When I got home, I locked myself in my room, sitting on the floor, my back against the door, and pulled out my phone. I scrolled through the school's group chat, where students were talking about Nina, about Ms. Sterling, about what had happened. Some were angry, some were sad, some were scared. No one was defending Ms. Sterling. No one was saying she'd done the right thing. For the first time, everyone was seeing her for who she really was, a woman consumed by power, willing to sacrifice her own daughter to get what she wanted. I thought about Nina's notebook, the small miniature notebook she'd hidden in her sleeve, the one she'd used to count the ways her mother had hurt her. I wondered if the police had found it. I wondered if they'd read the words she'd written, the pain she'd endured. I wondered if it would make a difference, if it would make Ms. Sterling pay. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Nina's face, her swollen cheek, the blood at the corner of her mouth, the look of despair in her eyes as she jumped from the window. I heard her screams, her pleas, her quiet whispers of "Mom, why?" I felt the guilt, heavy and suffocating, for not helping her, for not speaking up, for letting her suffer alone. I should have helped her. I should have told someone what Ms. Sterling was doing. I should have stood up for her, instead of standing by and watching. But I was scared. Scared of Ms. Sterling, scared of being her next target, scared of losing my own place in the class. So I stayed silent. And now Nina was